Hi, thank you for watching Digging into China. I'm Dong Xiong. On February 19th, the US officially rejoined the Paris Climate Accord to much media and European applause. I will bet you $5 that China is the most pleased because it knows the accord will restrict American energy while Beijing gets a decade-long free ride. Paris is a voluntary agreement and the nations submit their own commitment to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The Obama administration vowed to slash emissions 26% or more from 2005 levels by 2025, but the Trump administration withdrew from the accord. President Biden has now pledged to reach the net zero emissions no later than 2050. Like Mr. Obama, Mr. Biden is committing the US without submitting the Paris Agreement to the Senate as a treaty. They know it would never get a two-thirds vote for approval and probably not even a simple majority. Yet the administration will cite Paris to justify sweeping environmental regulations to raise the cost of fossil fuels and subsidize renewable energy and electric vehicles. It will bypass Congress for much of this. The economic damage will be real. In 2017, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the American Council for Capital Formation published an analysis of the Obama Paris commitments. The analysis report predicted a $250 billion reduction in GDP and some 2.7 million lost jobs by 2025. Meanwhile, in 2018, China emitted nearly twice as much CO2 as the US, yet under Paris, Beijing gets a pass to increase its emissions until 2030, according to S&P Global Platts. In 2020, China's coal plants produced some 4,874 terawatt-hours of energy, an increase of nearly 15% since it joined the pact. The U.S. generated an estimated 788 terawatt-hours of coal-fired energy in 2020 as cheaper natural gas replaced coal. Thanks to natural gas, a fossil fuel, the U.S. has outpaced most of the world in reducing emissions. And in 2019, emissions reached their lowest level since 1992. Market forces, not Paris, drove that reduction. And a new report by the nonprofit Global Energy Monitor highlights that in 2020, China built over 3 times as much new coal power capacity as all other countries in the world combined, the equivalent of more than 1 large coal plant per week. Last year, Beijing also initiated more than 73.5 gigawatts of new coal plant proposals, 5 times as much as the rest of the world combined, the report says. The growth in coal plant development in China is often based not on demand but on misguided economic incentives from the central government. In 2016, new coal plant permits were restricted throughout most of the country by the central government, following a 2014-2016 province-level permitting boom that threatened to overwhelm the country's 2020 coal power cap of 1,100 gigawatt. Yet, as the economy slowed in 2019, the central government began increasing the number of provinces allowed to greenlight new coal plants, reaching 25 of 31 provincial grids by 2020. The central government also expanded the local lending quotas in 2020 and encouraged investment to offset the economic impact from COVID-19. The increased investment also included clean energy, and in 2020, China added up to 119 gigawatts of wind and solar power to the grid, an all-time record and over doubled amount installed in 2019, which was 56 gigawatts. Yet reforms discouraging coal power use have been incomplete and uneven across the country, resulting in high levels of emissions for both renewable and coal power, effectively resulting in an all-of-the-above power strategy. The increase in both coal and renewable power capacity has decreased the operating hours for coal generators. Since 2015, the average utilization rate of the country's coal plants has been 50% or below, compared to a high of 61% in 2011. Recent electricity shortages in several provinces in central China highlighted an apparent paradox. The country has far more capacity than it needs, but the grid management issues and the grid bottlenecks still led to electricity rationing in December 2020, because power plants were inoperational or unwilling to generate at a time of high coal prices, and there was insufficient transmission capacity. Yet, the episode is increasing pressure on the planning agencies to allow a further expansion of coal-fired capacity in the next 5 years. In September 2020, Chinese President Xi Jinping announced that the country would aim to be carbon neutral by 2060. The president also said that China would strive to peak carbon emissions before 2030, upping its Paris climate commitment of peaking emissions around 2030. Instead of taking the pledge as a signal to wind down coal plant development, however, coal and the power interests are pushing instead to increase the country's coal fleet through the next 5-year plan, reaching up to 1,300 gigawatts. Allowing for such a large increase in the coal fleet through 2025 or beyond would necessitate steep and unprecedented drops in the country's carbon emissions to meet its carbon neutral goal. Preliminary analysis for achieving the 2060 carbon neutral target suggests China's power sector should decarbonize by 2050 to allow time for electrification of the industrial and the transport sectors. If the central government allows for current levels of coal plant development to be maintained, it will, at the best, divert important resource away from its clean energy transition and, at worst, make China's carbon neutral goals difficult, if not impossible, to achieve, given the scale and rate of emission cuts that will be required. Paris will have zero effect on the climate even if every nation meets its commitments. Mr. Biden will dispatch John Kerry, his climate envoy, to lobby China and everyone else to reduce emissions, which will also please President Xi Jinping. Mr. Xi will be happy to make promises about the future while demanding U.S. concessions today on Taiwan, trade, and more. The Chinese communists must sit back and marvel as they watch the U.S. undermine its own economic strength. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment and subscribe to my channel. Just click the subscription button right here. I'll see you again shortly.